Thank you, everyone. It's great to be here. This is actually my first time in Berlin, which is somewhat peculiar given the last name is Sorgatz, I guess. So I run this company in New York City called Sorta Media. We're essentially a digital creative strategy consulting company. We help other individuals and companies make digital things. And I got asked to be on here from Jeremy, I think because of a tweet. I said this several weeks ago on Twitter. Overconnected is the new overeducated. And it's one of those things that even if you just see it and I bet a lot of people have a sort of a resonance with it, that we've entered a culture in the last several years where sometimes we feel that life has become an aggregation of Twitter followers and likes and Facebook friends. And sometimes we lose connection with actually making things and being producers in culture. And I think there's a lot that we can learn about trying to get out of those numbers and back into like becoming individuals who want to essentially be creative again. And that's really what I want to talk about today is essentially ingenuity and innovation, how it is that we come up with ideas. And to give you a little bit of background about me, as Jeremy said, my last real job was working at MSNBC.com, and I had a long history of working for large media companies. And I left about 4 years ago, and I moved to New York, and I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do. So I decided to make a list, and the list was essentially things that I hate. And I was going to make a list of things that I didn't want to do, hoping that, well, out of this, I would know that what I would want to do. So the first thing I put on my list was agencies. Apologies to anyone in the room who works for a creative agency. And because I had this background in media, I had this anxiety about it because agencies, everyone who's in them also feels this anxiety, right? They're slow, they're ineffectual, they bill like lawyers. It's not the greatest community to be in sometimes. Every industry sort of hates themselves. But the second thing I realized I hated was consultants, and they're sort of the same, right? Consultants are also slow, and they're also ineffectual, and they also bill like lawyers. And then the third thing on my list was clients. And then if you add up all of these, because who really likes clients? Because they always want something, and they're calling you at weird times, and they're so demanding. And I came out of this list thinking to myself, what could I possibly create in the so-called creative industry that would try to run away from all three of these things? It seemed pretty impossible. So what I really created was a digital consulting agency, despite my own efforts not to. But what I think that I tried to do is create an environment that didn't look like another digital agency. And I know a lot of agencies think of themselves as anti-agencies, and I think that there's a lot of movement within the industry to try to think outside the box. And I'm just going to try to talk about some of the things that we work on and how we think we're different. You can tell by the name, Sorta Media, that it enters into the space a little bit with trepidation, a little bit timidly. Kinda wants to be something, sorta wants to be something. But we think of ourselves really as excelling because we exist in between spaces. And that's the thrust of the things that I want to talk about today, is that I think that the most innovative things in culture, and on the creative side of it especially, are things that are trying to find spaces that exist between things that were previously opposites. So one of the obvious ones that the agency world deals with is the idea of clients, right? Clients are a very hierarchical organization or hierarchical structure where you pay me money so that I give you services. The services can be marketing research or Photoshop documents or this awesome website, whatever it may be. Well, on the other side, there's this idea of partnerships. Partnerships are more like you and I enter into an agreement, and out of that agreement comes both of us having some stake, some equity in this new product we've made. And so that's really the starting point of where we begin, is that almost all of the clients that we take and work with, in fact, client's not even really the right word, it's like it really is closer to a partnership. We find young companies we want to work with, somewhere between 2 and 6 people, and we really help them get going by doing a variety of services for them. It can be marketing, it can be PR, it can be helping them find a CTO, it can be helping them launch their iPad app, it can be so many different things. And we just figure out what it is that they need to get to the next level, and we sort of nurture them along the way. And we've created this like pretty robust group of New York companies that are doing pretty interesting things out there right now. So that's sort of the first tenet of what we do. The second one is a philosophy and idea that I adhere to, and it's called the gig economy. It actually comes from a phrase that Tina Brown used a couple years ago. She observed that no one has a job anymore, they've got gigs. Everyone sort of knows this, right? You meet someone new and you ask them what they do. More and more people, they don't have one answer, they have like 3 or 4 answers. They're like a designer, but they're opening a restaurant, and they're got this great thing that they've got on Etsy, or whatever their things are that they're trying to put together. And I think that's good. I think it's healthy for people to have this kind of multifaceted polymath kind of living. And much of the work that we do is based upon trying to bring in people like that to work in single projects, one-off things. So we're a really small company that uses this really large network of talented people who are one-off consultants or designers that have one-person shops, or really kind of individuals that are trying to make creative lifestyles in which they get to do lots of different things. We get to work with those people a lot, and it's really interesting. So I'm just going to kind of talk really quickly about some of the cool stuff we've gotten to work on over the years. I think it starts off with this, one of the other dichotomies we like to break down, which is the difference between marketing and product development. I think anyone who's ever done marketing knows this, that product development is making something, and marketing is trying to find the audience for it. And it never works when they're two different things separated, because so often the thing that you're trying to make, you already have an idea who you want to use it. And if you can find ways to really merge these, it's clearly like the best way to work. And because we get to work with early stage companies, this is really what we excel in. So for food, I'm not sure if people have heard of it. It's a fast food restaurant in Midtown Manhattan that we helped launch late last year. And it's pretty interesting. It's a mashup of fast food culture, ecology, and social media. So what would all those things mean together? Well, we worked on it for a couple years, and the basic idea is that you can come into the store or order online, and you create a custom experience, a custom burger, a custom piece of food. And so you pick the bun, and you pick the patty that can be sirloin or salmon or veggie burger or whatever it may be. There's a small gimmick, which is there's a hole in the middle of the burger. And inside that hole, you can choose one of 40 different ingredients to put in: edamame, veggie salsa, hummus, a variety of other things. And then you put other things into it. And what you get is this really totally customized burger that you can then choose to name and market. So if you do the math, there's actually 110 million options. If you try to create them infinitely, you could do that many burgers. But so every one is really your individual creation, if you think about it. So what does it mean to name and market a burger? It means that if you chose to put together something and name it, let's say, the Next 11, the next person who comes into the store can see that you've ordered that, or they can see it on a leaderboard that shows the most popular burgers, and they can choose to order it. You can also recommend it to your friends. You can put it on Facebook. You can put it on Twitter. You can embed a widget on your blog. You can try to promote your individual food creation. Why would you want to do this? Because every time someone buys your burger, you get 25 cents. You get a quarter into your account. And the next time you come into the store, you can either use that as store credit, or you can donate it to a charity. So what it really did is try to find a way to bring product development and marketing together. We greatly reduced our marketing budget by having the food creators, the product developers, if you will, market the food themselves. And it was really like an effective way to get the word out about the restaurant without having to do any kind of ad buys or anything. I think it also kind of broke down other binaries that we're sort of stuck in right now when we think about making new things. Buzz, which sort of feels like this natural phenomenon that you make something cool and people will come to it, versus PR, which is like constructed messaging. It's sort of a boxed kind of entity. Well, for food sort of made it seem like that these things were kind of interconnected in some way because other people were doing your marketing for you. And also, obviously, physical and digital. I think it's a thing that a lot of us are thinking about right now is how do we use digital technologies inside physical spaces. So even though it's like a restaurant in a single location, there's this entire aura around it of sort of internet penumbra around it that sort of exists outside of it and exists on Facebook and other places. So other interesting dichotomies that we think a lot about include individuals and brands. I suppose this one's become the most interesting in the last few years because has everyone noticed that the kind of people out there who think of themselves as brands, which is a funny phenomenon if you think about it, while at the same time the reverse is happening, there are companies out there who are trying to make themselves seem more like individuals. They're participating in Facebook. They're tweeting like they're people in some weird way. So there's this kind of meltdown of like what it means to be an individual who wants to attain some sort of status versus a brand who's trying to act like a person. And this kind of mismatch, I think, is creating interesting opportunities out there. I think really related to that is the breakdown of editorial and commerce. For a long time, we thought about these as distinct ideas. And I think it was probably healthy for democracy to have the idea of advertising and editorial to be separate. But we're finding more and more opportunities where it just sort of makes sense that we talk about things in a way that borrows from both ideas. One of the favorite startups that I work with right now is called Of a Kind. They're really interesting because they came to me and they had this idea for a limited edition store. The idea is they go out and find independent designers and they solicit them to make limited edition products. So you can only buy 20 of a kind or 25 of this particular item. And once they're gone, they're gone. And their background was interesting because they came from Condé Nast. They came from a media background. And so they wanted to, there was always writing stories about the objects that they were curating. And they had this very narrative, journalistic mindset about it. And they write long-form stories, almost like they're writing a profile about a person, about these objects. And for a long time, we fought about like how that will fit into a commercial model. And then finally, we just sort of gave up and said, you know what? If you can find a way to tell stories about things in a way that's really compelling, that's probably just as interesting as a long profile of someone. Especially if you're going to spend some money on something, imagine sort of carrying around something that you're equipped with all of this narrative, all this insight, all of this background about the creator and the designer of it. So one last example. This is one of our most successful companies right now. It's called VU. It's really starting to take off. The polarity here that we like to talk about a lot is the difference between real-time culture and on-demand culture. Real-time being you dip into a stream. Twitter's an obvious example. It's always new things coming up. On-demand is much more around like search, TiVo, choosing when you want to watch something. And I think VU is like a really interesting case because it's trying to say that distinction is abstract and potentially obsolete. The way VU works is you end up on somebody's video profile like this, and there's a little search box below the person. And the person's looking right at you, and there's a video playing. And they're waiting for you to type something in. And so you start typing in, and it starts to auto-suggest, as you can see. It starts to auto-suggest what it is that it thinks that you're asking. And if it's something that they've been asked before, you can select that video, and it'll play back. Or if you want to enter in something new, you can do that, and they'll get an email, and they'll enter it right away. So what it does is create almost like a personal archive of everything that you've ever wanted to answer. We have people on here who have answered up to 2,000 questions. And they keep this little thing, and you can embed it, move it around the web, put it on your site, whatever you want. And what you do is you have like this little search engine of yourself. Anyone who wants to come and ask you a question, you find this thing, and you just start typing in. You can interact with someone that feels like it's real time, that feels like it's intimate, but in fact, it's actually little small pre-recorded bits. So it's been really successful. A whole bunch of interesting people have been using it. It's about 4 months old. I encourage you to check it out. So yeah, that's us, kind of sort of media. We're somewhere in here. We're an investing company. We're a consulting company. We're an incubator. We help fund a lot of startups. And we also look a little bit like a digital agency. I don't know what to call us, so if anyone has any advice, I would love to hear it. Thanks.